We're going to begin with song, with words that Paul Gauguin scribbled in the corner of one of his paintings. It was in French, of course, but the meaning was, where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Big, deep life questions. So we're going to begin right there this morning. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing.
In our commitment to be in right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week. In doing so, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people. As residents or visitors in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountain here in Grass Valley, California. I am Gail Johnson Vaughan and privileged to be your worship leader today. As we continue our summer service series, try and say that fast, summer service series, I can't, inspired by the UU principles that we covenant to affirm and promote. Today, we explore the fourth principle, free and responsible truth, search for truth and meaning. In this day and age, the search for truth takes on nuances and meaning way beyond lofty spiritual connotations. In our Sunday service welcome, we strive to make you all feel comfortable, regardless of where you come from, regardless of where you are on a wide range of personal characteristics: age, size, gender, who you love, race, belief, how you understand that which is beyond human comprehension, how you search for truth and meaning. If I were to take a poll today to identify our paths that our members and friends have taken on that search, that quest, we would surely see divergent paths, crisscrossing, branching, mazes, ancient teachings, New Age concepts, mystic contemplation, scientific penetration into life's mysteries. Whatever path you are on, you are welcome here. Whether or not you consciously search, whatever path you travel, or if you're really wonderfully content with where you are welcome here. Now, I'd like you to take just a second, stand up, look around, say hello to the people around you, because I'm not the only welcomer here. Please do. It's really tricky to get people to sit down after I've given them permission to enjoy all the people that are here. So thank you, thank you. This service today, we're going to use metaphor and story, poetry, song, and conversation to shine a light on one or more aspects of the fourth principle. And today we're going to kind of lean toward humanism. Whether you find yourself reflected in what we share, that are on one of the many other paths, you are very welcome here. I hope that what we share will make you curious to know, to more fully understand your own path and to want to know the path of your others here. These are all important building blocks as we weave the ever more beautiful tapestry that is UUCM. I am so glad we are here together.
Chalice lighting. Our chalice reminds us that the fire within ourselves is the same fire that illuminates the universe. It is our reminder that all is connected, even though the space of the void is vast and our experience here is but a blip in the cosmic timeline. In today's world, where truth is so often intentionally obscured, our chalice and all it stands for illuminates our way on our journey towards life and the truth and meaning.
Those of you at home and those of you in the room, we're joined by a lot of people at home. This is a good time for you to light your home chalice, candle, or whatever you want to help focus what you're doing here today.
I had the privilege at Amherst of meeting Robert Frost. He had been in the English department, but he came once in the fall and once in the spring semester, did a lecture, went to a few English classes, and then visited a couple fraternity houses. And it just so happened that he visited my fraternity, spent a couple hours talking, reading, and since I was the only lit major in the senior class, it was my privilege to take him out to dinner afterwards. We walked down the hill past Emily Dickinson's house, another story there, and squeezed into a booth and had dinner together for a couple hours easily. And he did most of the talking, but it was very memorable for me. So, and by the way, this poem has always been one of my favorites. It's one that Judith Ellen and I often read to each other. The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere, ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
When Pete and I chose that poem, I said, gosh, I wonder if we can get permission. He said, Bobby gave me permission. I found our wisdom story for today to be a wonderful metaphor for the search for truth and meaning. Allow yourself to see it through that lens as our lovely Olivia Rivers Sampson reads it to us.
There, by Marie Louise Fitzpatrick, read by Olivia Rivers Sampson. When will I get there? How will I know? Will there be a sign that says, "Here is there"? Will it take long to get there? Till tomorrow? Till next week? Next year? Will I be really big there? As tall as a house? As tall as the trees? Will I never be too small again? Will I wear sensible shoes and say sensible things? Will I never say anything silly again? Never, ever, ever, ever? What color are sunflowers there? Are blueberries still blue? And will there be rainbows? I'll still build snowmen and sand castles. Definitely. And will I know everything there? Will I know all the secrets? Will I know how to count the stars and how to fix the broken things? Is it a jungle there? Will I find my way through? Will there be dragons? Will they be really fierce? Do you know how to tame dragons? I do. You look them right in the eye and count to 10. Then they just fly away. Can Teddy come too? Can I stop along the way? Can I pick daisies? Is everybody going there? Can I change my mind and go elsewhere instead? I won't go today. I've got lots to do. I'll go there tomorrow. Definitely.
To our youngest members as they head to Kids Connection time. For those who are going, I invite us all to sing a verse of This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I love that picture of you speaking to Bobby, Pete. Every week as we plan services, the worship team has in mind and heart that on a Sunday morning, someone, at least someone, will come in brokenhearted. That someone will come in almost giddy with glee, perhaps with something that they can't even share with others yet. Other people will come in worried about their own health and the huge questions that hover. Always, we know, people come in with the wide range of questions, the whole spectrum of joys and sorrows. And somewhere in the service, we try to speak to that range of the places people are on a given morning. And we take time every Sunday to surface that in our own hearts and in our own awareness. So I invite you, as we do each week, to take stock of the joys, the sorrows, the worries, the concerns, the giddiness that's in you, that accompanies you this morning. To recognize it, acknowledge it, and to hold it together as a community. So in a moment, we'll take a little bit of silence to do that self-reflection, that internal look. And then for those at home, if you're online, you'll have a chance to type into the chat, if you wish, some piece of the joys and the sorrows that you're holding. And for those in the room, you'll have a chance, if you wish, to come forward and in this very quiet ritual, to pick up a stone from the table and place it in the bowl of water, acknowledging what you hold, aware that you're not alone when you place it in that water, and aware that you are held by this community and by something much larger than this moment. So first, I invite you into just a moment of silence to take stock, to listen, to feel what's in you, and then we'll hold each other as we share or place stones or sit in our own reflective silence and prayerfulness. I've placed stones for all the rest that we might be holding, and for those who are at home. I'm going to invite the people in the room to, if you wish, a few people to name in a word or a phrase the category of the stone that you placed, what you're holding today. If you're in the room, what would you name? Love? Gratitude? Acceptance? I'm sorry? One more time, please. Sorrow. Joy. From the folks online, sending love to my dearest ones who face diverging needs and work towards satisfying unity. Sorrow for the loss of a dear friend, Linda Horning, a member here. A group of us will spread her ashes in her favorite hiking venue in the Sierra on August 18th. Surrendering into the great mystery, not knowing anything, is at times terrifying and exhilarating. And staying with the truth, which is where everything resides, in unity, finding grace. Sadness to wake up to smoke in the sky this morning. Gratitude to ancestors. Gladness to be home after traveling. Birthday wishes. Sadness at a delightful neighbor dying of brain cancer. wonderful dream of a beloved father. A small sample of the range of what people hold. I would invite us this morning to engage in a body prayer that's inspired by the person who's our primary contact to the larger Unitarian Universalist Association, Annie Scott. So as this is comfortable to you, I invite you to join me. We'll do it first with the talk through, and then we'll do it without words. But we'll begin with that simple prayer stance in so many cultures. And for some people, it helps to know that actually touching your fingertips together helps the two halves of your brain actually integrate, work together, communicate, right? So there are reasons that this is a prayer stance in so many cultures. I invite you to know yourself grounded, centered, heart anchored in this stance. And from there to open up with arms upward, as if you're open to taking in what exists, what is true, what is real, what surrounds us, what holds us, what comes to us. A stance of openness, of receiving. Bringing all that's received down into the heart, where there it remains in conversation with that deep inner voice, that deep inner wisdom we hold. Out of which we reach out toward others with an openness to those in our lives, those near and far, with respect and honesty, receptiveness, and then sharing that sum total of all of it out farther into the world we touch. Back to our heart-centered place. Openness to all that we receive. Drawing it into our hearts, conversation with our deep inner wisdom, from which we reach out to others and offer what we have to the world. Back to centered. One more.
The star of truth but dimly shines behind the veiling clouds of night, but every searching eye divines a partial glimmer of its light. The certainty for which we crave, no mortal ones can ever know. Uncharted waters we must brave and face whatever winds may blow. Though for safe harbor we may long, we must must not let our courage fail. And though the winds of doubt blow strong upon the trackless ocean sail, though for this doubt we shall not flee, nor fetter the inquiring mind. For where the hearts of all are free, a truer faith we there shall find.
What Humanism Means to Me by Helen Bennett. Humanism means to me a chance to feel I'm really free.
To take responsibility for all I choose to do and be.
I don't demand a deity to dominate my destiny.
But I decide the ends I deem most worthy of my self-esteem.
Creating purposes and goals nourishes all human souls.
Our ethics we ourselves have wrought, from social need to human thought.
Words like prayer and soul and grace for me will always have a place as metaphors for what we teach beyond the realm of concrete speech.
Mythology and metaphor can help us penetrate the core of mystery, that art, source of art, that we may reveal the human heart.
Unlimited capacity for good or ill, tenacity, and products of the human mind promote my faith in humankind.
We have the power to postulate a world that's free from fear and hate, where love and tolerance hold sway, and no one is compelled to pray.
The best ideals, the thought of God, emanate from humble sod, for men and women have created every concept we've debated.
From Shakespeare's art to Hitler's pain, we take the sunshine with the rain.
And with humanism, our guide, faith and reason coincide.
And in our hands lies nature's fate, to nurture or to desecrate.
Evil can cause us to fail, but I think goodness will prevail.
Though orthodoxies may throw a rope, humanism is our hope.
And now for that chat you get to listen into. Hey, Pete, how's it going? A couple of weeks ago, Pete and I had a chance to get together. He accepted my invitation to sit and think together with me about how a Sunday service on the fourth principle might look like. And as we chatted in this very rich and wonderful time, we traveled this wonderful odyssey of the journey each of us have taken in our search for truth and meaning over the years. And combined, I figured, I don't know, it was approaching 17 decades or 18 or something. A lot of years combined between the two of us. It was really great. And I'd so wished that I'd recorded it because it was just delicious. But I didn't. And so he was kind enough, gracious enough to agree to continue our chat here and let you guys listen in. So really focusing on his quest for truth and meaning. So, Pete, in our chat, you told me that after you graduated Amherst in 1956, in that day and age, the world was really the graduate's oyster. I mean, you could have just about anything you want to go any place, but you wanted to choose a path that had purpose. I'm really impressed with that at that young age that you wanted that. So you had all these choices, but much to your own surprise, really, you decided to do a semester at Union Theological Seminary. Why?
Well, it was a truly great conversation, I have to say. Well, I did have the good fortune to be in a small birth cohort, midst of the Depression, 1935. And so graduation, everybody wanted us. Even though I bombed out of pre-med after dissecting the fetal pig, Harvard Medical School still recruited me. They said, we love liberal arts majors. Teaching program at Harvard, ad agencies, the YMCA, because I'd been a camp sports director, the Washington Post, Amherst alumnus there, foreign service. I even thought of law school to go into politics. Glad I didn't do that. But nothing seemed, in Robert Frost's words, as having the better claim on my life. I really was totally directionless. All these opportunities, where to go. I love that story there that Olivia read. So I went to the college psychologist, and he gave me what they called a vocational interest inventory, standard kind of thing. And 3 top things that came out of that, the 3 top matches were teaching. It made a lot of sense, because I had a lot of great teachers. I could see myself there. Law, not so much. And ministry. Ooh. I had said farewell forever to Christianity in the 9th grade. I grew up in this very mediocre Methodist church. It was just boring and chaotic. Anyway, so at that time, Amherst had a requirement. They had 4 weekday chapel service, 10-minute chapel services, and we were required, attendance was taken, to go to at least 2 a week. And it happened that the chaplain, Thayer Green, was very young, not a lot older than we were, very bright, and much to my surprise, getting up for an 8 o'clock chapel service wasn't that awful. It was actually a little interesting. And so that kind of got me thinking about, gee, this chaplain sounds like a pretty decent guy. I think I'll drop in on him and just dump on Christianity, tell him all the things that I thought were wrong with it. And so I did that. I just popped into his office, and I figured he'd get defensive, he'd kick me out, and anyway, so I walk in, and he puts his feet up on the desk and leans back, and it seemed like a couple minutes, but I think we talked for a couple hours. It was just kind of the way you and I talked that night, but different in a way. So I felt affirmed when I walked out. And I had more questions than when I'd walked in. Good chaplain.
Sounds a lot about today. Like, what is this search? Do I have to search? I guess I have to search.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I did the same thing a couple of weeks later. I just popped in, And it was kind of a repeat, but not repetitious. It was more just great conversation. And at the end of it, he said, Pete, you know, the clerical club, the clerical club is having a speaker that I really think you like. He's Dean of Students at Union Seminary, and he's one of the founders of the East Harlem Protestant Parish. Well, clerical club sounded pretty subversive, but what the hell, I went. And here was this young crew-cut guy, could have been a Marine. Back then I admired Marines, I didn't really want to be one. And he talked about a lot of things, but the thing that stuck with me, he said, you know, if you haven't really found what you want to do with your life, if you really haven't found the meaning, why don't you take a trial year or even a trial semester at Union, get your questions answered, and you can leave anytime, no questions asked, no obligation. Well, that was a whole new door that opened. And well, so long story short, a lot of thrashing, a lot more directionlessness. I ended up applying and being accepted at Union. And I figured it would be sort of like an extended conversation with the chaplain, you know, and I'd get all my skepticism about Christianity finally just out of there. And then my plan was I'd move across the street to Columbia, do a PhD in American literature, and probably become a professor. That just seemed kind of the way to go. My bride-to-be, not Judith Ellen, Virginia, nurse, was pretty surprised because we met at a big picnic and got talking, and she'd grown up on a farm upstate New York. And for some reason or other, she said, the two people I never want to be married to are a farmer or a minister. And I laughed and said, no chance of either one of those. So she was kind of surprised. Anyway, I got to Union. There were about 12 others doing trial year. Bright bunch. In fact, everybody, they were all bright, and the faculty really were brilliant. Some of you may know the name Reinhold Niebuhr. He was there. Just sit down and talk with Reinhold Niebuhr. Dave was asking me, was Robert Frost the most famous person? Maybe it was Reinhold Niebuhr. Anyway, Union had a requirement that we had to do field work in addition to classes. And the most coveted, it turned out, was the East Harlem Protestant Parish. And I, again, was one of the lucky ones. The first time I got off the 3rd Avenue bus and set foot on 102nd Street, everything I'd learned at Amherst kind of became irrelevant. Poverty, violence, dirt, and the ministers of the East Harlem Protestant Parish lived in those tenements, raised their kids there. The kids went to the awful ghetto school. Their apartments were broken into. And yet they had a buoyancy and a kind of authenticity that really I kind of wanted to bottle it and take it home with me. It was just something I hadn't experienced. So that East Harlem experience was not just paradigm shifting, but paradigm shattering. I mean, it just really blew things open. And I began to think, gee, it'd be kind of neat to be a college chaplain and put my feet up on the desk and talk to young whippersnappers like Pete Sabey. I was lucky to get a Danforth fellowship, and it provided me with an intern year as assistant university chaplain at Northwestern. Great chaplain, and a really amazing year. And part of my job was to interview all the denominational campus ministers and do a report try to help them learn how to cooperate with each other. So I did in-depth interviews with all of them. I learned a lot. And so kind of, I guess the bottom line is I could begin to see myself as a college chaplain. If only I could believe all that Christian stuff.
So, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. So here you go. You've rejected Christianity when you're 9, and then you find yourself in seminary, and then you're heading toward being a college chaplain, and then you end up a humanist. Okay, what's that journey about?
Well, that's yeah, it's complicated. I used to call myself a progressive Christian. But even then, the Christians that seemed to make most of the news were kind of, some of you may have read The Catcher in the Rye. Holden Caldwell goes to the Easter show at Radio City Music Hall. Somebody says, "How'd you like the show, Holden?" And he says, "Jesus would puke." I love that line. I've used it a lot of times. But at that point in my journey, the Christianity that Thayer Green, the chaplain at Amherst, embodied, and the ministers in the East Harlem Protestant parish had an authenticity and a buoyancy and just a joy in living that I found almost irresistible. My experience at Northwestern interviewing all the campus denominational ministers, one of the things I learned is that if I was going to be a college chaplain, I really should have a taste of what life in a parish was like. And so I decided I was going to spend my first ministry. I kind of had gotten that direction. I went back to Union my senior year and delved really deeply into the New Testament, Greek New Testament, and wrote a senior thesis on Paul's letter to the Romans and the doctrine of justification by faith. Some of you may be familiar with that. And a very simple way of explaining that doctrine is your professor says, everybody in this class is getting an A. So just relax, enjoy learning the material. Just think how liberating that would be. So again, to vastly oversimplify, a gracious God says to all of us, you get an A in life. So enjoy it and just do the works of love and justice. So I graduated from Union and I got called to be pastor of the First Congregational Church of Williamsburg, Mass. Not the one where Williams College is, but close to Smith and Amherst. And when I got there, the United Church of Christ had just formed. And there was a lot of opposition to congregational churches were becoming part of that. A lot of opposition. And one of my proud pastoral accomplishments was that I brought the church into the UCC without it splitting. That was quite miraculous. And the United Church of Christ, some of you may know, is the denomination that is closest to UU, to Unitarian Universalism, very progressive. My then wife, Virginia, really never liked being a pastor's wife, and that cast a fairly long shadow over our marriage. Anyway, the supernatural part still just didn't quite sit right with me. Those 2 years of pre-med, hard science, physics, calculus, chemistry, biology, you can't help but have your worldview powerfully impacted by science.
So how did you resolve all that?
Well, again, it was a struggle. It was a wrestle. But on the on the opposite side of that scientific skepticism, I had two mystical experiences and really, I think, theophanies. I don't know how many you know the word theophany, but think God speaking to Moses out of the burning bush. It really was of that kind of, I didn't have a burning bush or anything like that, but it was a couple gripping experiences where I felt my whole being just shaken. I wrote, after each one of them, I wrote it down because I was sure I'd think later I was hallucinating or just stress, dream, something. I never fully resolved whether it was theological or psychological, but after 30 years of being a marriage and family therapist, you can guess that I kind of leaned toward the psychological. But they were powerfully transformative. And then this may seem like a digression, but it really isn't. Long before I knew the word feminist, I was one. Now, my dating life was literally nonstop starting in the 5th grade. I actually got engaged in the 5th grade. But I also always had girl friends. That conversation you and I had, you're a girlfriend. And the parallel point is really that long before the word humanist entered my vocabulary, I think I was one. So feminism, humanism, I never, ever was able to understand misogyny, sexism, and what now is rightly called toxic masculinity. And it just was kind of intuitively perceptible, nice phrase, that if women are half of humanity, then you have to affirm their full humanity.
So, that feminism is intrinsic to humanism?
I think so. This may seem like an odd answer to your. In John, the 4th gospel, the last of the gospels, Jesus is sort of, I don't know how many of you ever read it, but Jesus is sort of depicted as walking around, like God walking around disguised in human flesh. He's a very exalted.
Can you turn up the mic a little bit? It sounds like it's down. It's not working. It's not working at all. Here, try this. Yeah.
Oh, where was I? What's that? Where was? When did I cut out? Okay, yeah. So Jesus was portrayed as kind of God in human disguise, human flesh, and in the same gospel, Jesus has a lot of I am saying. I am comes from the Hebrew, one of the names for God, Yahweh. I am. Anyway, I am, said Jesus, the way and the truth. And I'm, again, a little out of context, but out of that saying came the Christian view that God is truth, searching for truth, right? So should lead to God. But again, so many self-professed Christians were anything but truthful, in my experience. And that's even before today's corrupt Trumpian evangelicals. But something that made a little more sense to me was Gandhi's formulation. Some of you may know this. Gandhi said, truth is God. That kind of worked. Anyway, I hope all this God talk isn't making any of you too nervous. Welcome to the club. As I said, the supernatural side of Christianity never, ever quite settled in right. even though I was now an ordained minister. Some of you may have heard of theologian Paul Tillich. He's one of my favorites. And he wrestled with that. And he said, we can never use the word God and really know what we're talking about, because, as he said, God is a symbol for God. And that's not just double talk. In other words, when we say the word God, we're pointing toward a mystery that is humanly incomprehensible. So I love oxymorons. I call that my theistic agnosticism. Anyway, a cosmic divine being who intervenes in human affairs always sort of seemed to me more like Greek mythology. It just didn't quite hit reality. Even so, a core doctrine of Christianity was that Jesus was fully God and fully man. But in reality, the church always emphasized the fully God and kind of, yeah, he was human, but pretty heavily leaning toward God. I came across a formulation. This is not something I made up, but I kind of like this. It went like this: from God's point of view, Jesus is what a human being should be like. And from a human point of view, Jesus is what God might be like. Kind of worked. I like that. So, and so now I have, from the sublime to the ridiculous, I want to talk about the great Playboy incident. Yes, I was chaplain at Lafayette College at the time. Yep, I became one of those. And Harvey Cox, a young theologian at Harvard, wrote an article for Playboy called "For Christ's Sake." I don't know if any of you ever read Playboy, but I'm sure some of you did. Anyway, when it hit the stands, students came running up to me and said, "Chaplain, did you see this?" And so I read the article, and it was great. It affirmed the fun-loving, food and wine-loving kid playing with very human Jesus. It was a neat article. But I thought, isn't it ironic that in Playboy, of all places, Jesus as a sexual human being never came up? And that prompted a letter to the editor of Playboy, which was published. And when that one hit the stands, I was besieged by students with their copies of Playboy in hand. Led to a lot of counseling, a lot of good conversations. Also almost got me fired. And now I have to mention, speaking of Jesus as a fully sexual human being, there was an obscure professor at an obscure college in West Virginia called Davis and Elkins. Heard of it? No. And the book was called "Was Jesus Married?" And provocative title. And he made a very persuasive case based on the Judaic culture of the time that Jesus had to have been married to have had credibility. If William Phipps had been at Harvard or Yale, that book would have been a blockbuster. But the church just buried it. It hardly got reviewed. The church continued to proclaim basically a sexless Jesus and celibacy and virginity and the whole thing. And of course, as we know, amazingly large slices of Christianity today are still arguing about, should we ordain women? Should we accept LGBTQI people, much less ordain them? So how did I become a humanist? I used to joke that humanists the Unitarians believe in one God at most. And I never actually belonged to a Unitarian or Universalist community, but I did get to preach 4 Sundays at the UU Church in Amherst. And, but that's another story. But when I wandered into this building, looking for an office for counseling, when we first moved to Grass Valley, talked to Anita. She mentioned the men's group. I went and got in the men's group and gradually became part of this community. And you know, I can truthfully say that I really found that this is my spiritual home. This is a place that, quoting Gandhi again, truth is God. This community does pursue truth. It's a loving community. It's justice-making, peacemaking, compassionate, equality, playful. Got to be playful. So yeah, I think this kind of made me a humanist.
So amazing. Well, Pete, I'm not going to let you answer the third question because we've used up our time, but he is going on the Zoom chat and is going to be back in the library, and anybody that wants to hear can join him then, or we'll be here till dinner time. Once you get him going, you just don't want him to stop, but I know you guys have other things to do today too. So you had a closing line you were going to say. You want to find your closing line? I think it was one that we can still say.
I sort of poke a little fun, but I quote Jesus again, a little bit out of context, I'll admit. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." I think that really speaks to the fourth principle and what I think we really embody in this community.
Thank you, Dr. Pete.
Thank you, Dr. Gail.
Just so delicious to have time with that man. And, you know, a lot of us don't know him real well because he presents as kind of quiet and he slides in and out, but man, really somebody to know well. So as we move into our offering time, this quiet time of passing the offering basket is an apt time to really ponder the meaning of giving, the meaning of what you are offering in this sacred moment. What is the truth that you seek by sharing your resources to help sustain the work of this beloved community and the work of our month's Share the Plate partner, Nevada County Habitat for Humanity? Each month we choose a community partner that is out doing the work we believe in the community. 25% of your gift, or more if you like, will support their mission to bring people together to build homes, community, and hope. In a county where more than 48% of our residents pay more than they can afford for housing costs. Now, as you may or may not know, Nevada County Habitat for Humanity envisions a community where everyone has the opportunity to have a safe, decent, and affordable place to live. If you place cash in the basket here in the sanctuary and would like all of it to go to Habitat for Humanity, place it in the white envelope you'll find there. Allison will now tell you the other ways to give.
Your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
With gratitude for your generosity, we dedicate these gifts to those who sweep the paths of truth and meaning clear, and offer helping hands we need to navigate our way in these curiously challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who makes the Sunday morning service happen, starting with Gail. Thank you for being worship associate today and for helping surface some of the richness that is Pete Sabey. Much, much appreciated. Jenny Dewey is also helping be a worship associate this morning, not feeling well today and so not here in person. Eileen Hale, thank you for being online and serving as the host there. Steve Temple and Bob Miller have been operating sound and audiovisual this morning. Thank you very much. Siobhan gets a break. Gail did some video editing. Shanti Emerson did the lovely setting once again. Toby, thanks for the beautiful music this morning. The very tender, beautiful music. Bob, I need that slide to see the rest. Yeah, the other thank yous. So our readers this morning, there's a beautiful choir section right here, as well as readers. So George and Wally and Dave and Shannon, and particularly Pete Sabey, thank you very much for sharing some of your insight and wisdom. To our greeters this morning, Jean Gilligan and Penny Harlan, who ran out and got some extra masks for us this morning. And to those who are helping with Ice Cream Social, which you'll hear about in just a moment, and to George and Corey for behind the scenes. I invite us to sing a closing song together, this song that sings to this whole idea of journey that we're on in this tradition. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing along.
divine. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness. Look inside your souls, the kindling of the heart fire, pilgrims do find the Spirit always restless. Find it in each mind and heart. Touch and hold that ancient yearning, kindling for a newfound truth. Touch and hold that ancient yearning. Stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Heart behind us, wayside hostel, built by those who knew wild roads. May we air their sacred embers, carried in our minds and hearts. God, we air their sacred embers.
Yes, this free and responsible search for truth and meaning is a journey of many possible paths, some with maps, some not. We have heard about some of Pete's quest, his journey, heard about it as far as he's traveled so far anyway. And of course, we each live our own journey as we illuminate our internal maps along the twists and turns of our search. Are we on the right road? Is there a there? Wait, wasn't there supposed to be a river here? In A Road Not Traveled, Scott Peck offers this wisdom. The biggest problem of making internal maps of reality is not that we have to start from scratch, but that if our maps are to be accurate, we have to continually revise them. As we carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.